Panel 8, starting now, securing the depths, protecting munition dump sites, clearance areas, and critical infrastructure from unauthorized access. And I'm going to hand the floor over at this point to Ferdinand Gehringer, Policy Advisor for Internal Security and Cybersecurity at the Konrad-Adenauer-Stiftung.
Thank you, Terry. Good morning. Good morning, everybody. A warm welcome. Without further ado, will all the panelists please join me on the stage. Stylianos, Karl, Peter, and Dimitri. There you are. Please take a seat. And we definitely gonna need Stylianos once again for his policy advice, for his expertise, and the great job the hybrid COE is doing in Helsinki. For our next panel, I would say it's the security morning. So welcome to our security panel. I heard from other guests the other days were more technologically, the legislation, regulation parts, and this morning we try on the last day of the Munition Clearance Week in Kiel to touch a little bit more the security aspects of the topic, and also to try to, let's say, put together the ties of UXO and protection of the underwater infrastructure. The sensitive underwater zone is not only threatened by Russia, China, sabotage, espionage, also disinformation campaigns in combination, but also the seabed in general with the munition and the whole area over there is under threat. And I'm very pleased to discuss the different aspects this morning with the excellent panel over here. I got on my right-hand side Karl Philipp Wrede. He is from the DLR Institute. He's the deputy head of the Institute for the Protection of Maritime Critical Infrastructure. Then we have Peter Menzel, Dr. Peter Menzel. He is the managing partner of the Rostock Institute for Ocean Technologies. Then we have Dimitri. Good morning, Dimitri Zelenskyi. He's the CEO of Toloka. It's a drone manufacturer in Ukraine. So I'm very interested in your experience and the good work you did in the last month. I guess you have a lot to share with us in the upcoming minutes. And Stylianos, he did a perfect kickoff for our discussion. So I prepared some thoughts on the protection of the critical infrastructure and the threat scene, but I think you mentioned more or less all of them for the kickoff. And we managed this right now that I will hand over to all of you, except of Stylianos. You already had your 15 or 20 minutes for a quick impulse of 10 minutes. And then I'm very happy to hear your questions, comments, remarks. We will have a hopefully great discussion and also lively debate, I hope so, because it's a timely topic. And when I say that when it comes to the critical infrastructure and the undersea scene, then the vulnerability of the maritime areas is not just a technical, ecological regulation thing. No, it's a concern also of security and security policy. So I'm very happy to discuss this together with you. And without further ado, I would please you, Peter, to start with your introduction words. And you also prepared some slides. I hope we can see them over there. We can see them here. Does it work? Yeah, perfect. Please, Peter, go ahead.
So thank you. Good morning, everyone. I was asked to say some words about the technical issues about seabed security. So there are a lot of solutions we already have, but the question from my point of view was, or in this short presentation, is how to start with it now. It's interesting. The first question is, of course, responsibility. Who's responsible to protect our critical infrastructure? And as this is, I think, it's one of the magic questions, like the data formats we discussed yesterday. I just skip this because this is far too political to be answered by me now. But I will start with some small introduction. What is the real challenge we are facing here? The available technologies, and maybe one first step how to get started to find a solution for this. Starting with the challenge, I heard when I was small, I learned, or it was the last years I learned, never touch a running system, as you know. And now the question is, as we heard already, is there someone touching our running system? So, and or alternatively, is there someone going to touch our running system in future? So that's the main question, because it's about fear always. And then, of course, we have the question, what is going to be touched, where, when, and maybe it would be good to know who. I mean, the question who is always the most magical here. But these are the four main questions I think we like to answer before doing something. And the what. This can be a lot of things. So this can be some sensor errors we are having, or it can just be deception. This can be spying operations, removal of objects. You can see a small picture on the right, upper right. This is one from Jens Gehringer, I think. And there we added a new object. Maybe you find it. This is typically DMM, so discarded munition. But we have some UXO there placed. If you find it, I'll give you a beer. We can have accidents during operation, dropped anchor or so. We can have manipulation or destruction of systems. As you can see, a vessel crashing into another one, or some thing on the seabed, some sonar images there. Is this just a sonar error, or is this something? What is this? So there is a lot of question about what. And the where, I think here I just show the picture of the German waters, means the German EZ. But that's not the end. So our infrastructure goes far, far more than just the German EZ. But this image stops, and if you just look at the German EZ, how complex this is, and whenever, I hope you all have been on sea before, this area is big, really big. So if you want to inspect this with vessels, you need 50,000 vessels, I do not know, to cover this completely. So it's a huge area, we have very harsh conditions, we have a lot of traffic, that is more or less impossible to survey the whole area. It's not, you cannot do this. And then we have, of course, not just offshore operation, but also onshore operation, which affect offshore infrastructure. And so there is a lot of things about where it could happen. And the when is the same as we heard. So is this already prepared? So is our infrastructure already prepared for, say, manipulation? Is also already objects installed there or not? Or our, let's say, enemy, do they know where our infrastructure is already? And do they already spotted critical points where we where they could destruct it? So the when is really another question. So is it prepared, or is it going to be prepared? Or is some kind of destruction already in operation that we did not find out, right? And the who is the most interesting question here. Of course, if you have a gray ship, that's very simple. It's hopefully the gray ship. But if it's a sailing vessel we found out, or a research vessel, or just some hobby divers, who knows who it was it? And this is broad questions, or broad variety of questions. To answer these questions is really hard to do. And the main thing at the end of all, what I just think is, do we need to find out, or do we just assume, yeah, maybe just we are not interested who it was, but how to repair our infrastructure afterwards. So the technologies for this, or solutions, let's say, the first and most simple solution for protecting our critical infrastructure is hiding it. so that nobody can access it. That's the most simple thing. That's what we're doing. So physically hiding it means burying the objects, and don't give the information where they are. So maybe if you have a subsea cable, a pipeline, maybe don't tell everybody where it is exactly. Maybe that's the first and most simple solution. Bury it so that you cannot access it very easily. And then, of course, prevent espionage by measures within the companies who are operating the infrastructure. And then, if this doesn't work, we additionally can do survey, which costs a lot of money, costs a lot of time. And if you do survey, the question is, are you still hiding your infrastructure because you're serving it? Then everybody knows where it is. So the Navy knows this question. For private industries, this is new because we are typically not hiding things, right? This is new and cost a lot of money. I mean, survey costs a lot of money. And another solution could be redundancy, resilience, which is going to be built up. This also costs a lot of money. You have to double your infrastructure in some cases. And it is a new approach how to build up our infrastructure. And for existing infrastructure, this is often a hard way to do this. And then if it is destroyed, repair it very quick. And this is also one thing we can prepare from our side. So do a repair action. We prepare for repairing, to do quick repairs. We have seen repairing a pipeline needs about half a year, repairing a cable, as you said, 2 to 3 months or so, maybe a bit more. So maybe being quicker with this. The technologies which we have are a lot. So we have AIS, we have radar, we have cameras, we have sonars, hydrophones, distributed acoustic sensing or temperature sensing. We have uncrewed vehicles in all varieties, subsea or subsurface, whatever. We have a lot of things. We have drones, airplanes, satellites. So a lot of things. We also have operational data from the operators of the infrastructure, which are often not taken into account, and intelligence data. I showed you one of the research vessels, which I showed, is this a critical research vessel or not? Where does it come from? What is it going to do? So these technologies are all available on the market. You can buy them. The main question is how to use them in future. And my conclusion to this first part of my presentation is the technologies are, or most technologies are available. I mean, market-ready TRL9, you can just buy them, apply them. Of course, you have to pay for it. And then there are a lot of legal questions. Are you allowed to listen around in the water and link the signatures to a vessel? Are you allowed to do this and just store this data? This is another question which we cannot, or I cannot, clear or answer, but sometimes maybe just do it, I would say. That's my perspective from the scientific point of view. And we need new solutions, means new applications of the existing systems. We have a lot of sensors, a lot of vehicles we can use, and the question here is how to combine them, how to apply them to this new question, and how to fuse all the data we get. We get a lot of data, a lot of information, which we maybe have to fuse somehow and analyze, get information out of this data. And now in my third part, I like to come to a first, let's say, kind of answer. So I asked how to get started. And there we have a NNCC, the Northern Naval Capability Corporation. May I go back to one slide? So where is it? There. We have the Northern Naval Capability Corporation, which is an alliance of 6 nations here: Netherlands, Germany, Sweden, Denmark, Norway, and Finland, who said, okay, let's just start. You see this image, this is 2 years old now, and they said, okay, let's just start finding solutions to protect our critical underwater infrastructure. And so they founded CSEC, which is a Seabed Security and Experimentation Center, where technologies and approaches to somehow protect our infrastructure together with the owners of the assets are going to be found. And maybe I give you a short introduction. So it is a combination of the infrastructure owners, like the transmission system operators, wind farm operators, pipeline operators, and the industry means the companies who have all the instruments down there in the exhibition hall, and the public stakeholders like the federal police, the Navy, and so our authorities. And so CSEC defines challenges where companies can show what they can do, what they're able to do, and the industry is asked to do this in cooperation, not coming here with one new vehicle, but combining their system with the system of other companies to come to a final or to a good combined solution, so that not we have to think about a solution, what could be done, but that the companies find out who they like to work with to come to a new solution. And maybe one very important information here, CSEC will not purchase anything. So if you now think, oh, I would take part on the CSEC challenges and then someone will buy something, no, that's not the case. So maybe someone can see what you have and this could be a good approach. And to give you an idea, the last CSEC challenge week took place in Scheveningen in May with 3 challenges. This was these 3 challenges: see what's there, no pipe to lose, and fishy finds. These were things like change detection, finding objects close to a pipeline, or just finding things or vehicles that are entering your area, the sea area, from a research vessel. So different challenges were defined, and then companies came there. As you can see, some of them are listed here, and this was there were some criteria who could participate, and at the end, within 2 weeks, 18 companies tried to show what they can do together to protect our critical infrastructure. And there were a lot of visitors invited, especially stakeholders like companies and operators of critical infrastructure. And in 26, that's my main pitch for today, in 26, this CSEC Challenge Week will take place in Rostock, and the focus there will be much more on data fusion, and data analysis. So what we talked about here yesterday with Jan, so this will be one of the main focus, how to get information out of all these data together. So that in general, we will also have vehicles, we'll have a lot of sensors that get collected on a single platform, and then our challenge participants can use this data, analyze the data, and are asked to show us what kind of information they get out of this data. And these are all kind of data, means including intelligence data, including operational data, everything. So the second thing which we are now improving here is that we have a much more closer cooperation with the asset owners. So this will also be new in CSEC 26, that we have the asset owners as partners within CSEC, so that it is not just a naval thing, it's a military thing, but also a participation of the owners. We cannot neglect the owners because nobody knows how the future laws will look and who has to protect it. And this is a common effort. We have to do it together. And that's the main aim of the CSEC Challenge 26. So if you're interested in it, you can contact me or our gentleman with the, they are not here from the Navy today, right? No, Mr. Shigula from the Marine Command. You can contact them, and then we find a solution how to include your technology to this. Again, Jens' image. Jens, you're still searching for the error. You found it? It's a 500 kilogram error. Maybe if you find it, I give you a beer. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Peter, for your introduction remarks, and especially for highlighting, I think, 3 main aspects. So the technology is already there, the solutions are here. You also raised the big issue of how can we better integrate the public sector within security policy of the state, of the different ministries, of different nations. I think it's a real issue. And you also showed us that the connection and the intersection between the UXO and protecting maritime critical infrastructure is very close, and that data fusion and Jan, your solutions could also help in protecting the maritime critical infrastructure. And I'm now happy to hear your thoughts, Karl. You're working for many, many years in this area, in the maritime infrastructure, focusing also on risk analyzing, the operational protection. So security is one of your main work of areas, and I'm happy to hear your thoughts. What can we also learn from the last years? We started, I think, in Germany, especially the debate about how we can better protect our critical infrastructure after Nord Stream in 2022, and we weren't really pushing forward, and I'm later on very happy to hear your thoughts on NATO and EU's approach. How do you see that and assess this? But what can we learn from the last years also when we talk about munition clearance and protecting the munition dump sites? Karl, the floor is yours. Thanks that you're here.
Thank you, Ferdinand.
It's working?
Yeah, it works. I brought no slides, so I'll just remain sitting here. Thank you, Commander, because your slides showed already everything there is to see and to understand regarding the topic. So now I'm just going to try and structure our panel's topic a little bit, how to bring together two maybe different, maybe not so different worlds from critical infrastructure protection, security issue, and UXO removal and environmental issue. Please take my thoughts as something to reflect on and come up with some questions. Because it's Friday morning, I will not be that provocative, but I might give you some difficult conclusions as well. Well, you might wonder why the German Aerospace Center has a saying in this. The name is kind of misleading. We do have an institute focusing purely on maritime infrastructure protection, and also across all the other institutes. We have a heavy maritime footprint for more than a decade already, but that might be something more for the coffee break if you're interested in hear more. So, similarities between these two issues. In the keynote, they were all brought up. Underwater infrastructure and dumping sites, they have no perimeter protection. And what is normal and obvious to you, that is something that needs to be reflected on when you consider how to protect something ashore. You will find a fence around every installation that needs somehow to be protected. We don't have fences at sea. It's normal and obvious to you, but it is a difference. And it is a difference that matters and that makes things at sea more difficult. The problem at sea is, I like to call it like a multi-dimensional problem. Yes, the issue, the infrastructure, the UXO might be on the sea floor, but you have to consider the sea column above, you have to consider the sea surface, and you have issues also in the air domain above and in the vicinity of these locations that factor in both like in terms of vulnerabilities, but also in terms of, and Peter mentioned this, in terms of sensors. We can use all these dimensions to allocate sensors and do something, but also adversaries can also operate in all these domains and achieve an impact. Long intervention times. If we fear that something might go on, we have much, much longer intervention times for authorities to react, to investigate, to stop something from happening. If we compare this to a land-based scenario, where basically the next police unit is 5 minutes away. Attribution is very difficult, and it's the result of all the things I mentioned earlier. If you don't see who is doing what in the moment where somebody does something, it's very hard to attribute. And attribute is not only pointing with the finger on the vessel like the new polar bear, or I mean, we had many samples today. It's also together with your finger being sure that whatever happened was done purposefully and not by accident. And if you don't have this first-hand evidence, that is a challenge. And the jurisdiction problems were also brought up many times today. I think this is an area of similarity that just looking at the German discussion on who is in charge for UXO removal, we spent decades debating on this because for a very long time we said there is no clear jurisdiction that points with a finger on somebody and says you are in charge. We have a similar issue now when it comes to the protection of the maritime infrastructures. We have to realize that some are within territorial waters, some nations have the Anschlusszone, the continuous zone. Some only have the EEZ, and then there's also the high seas, and that has an impact on who can do what under with which hat on, so to say. So there are similarities, and similarities are usually something that we can work on because they provide synergies in things that we want to do, but also they show up that if something bad is going to happen with these things, then if there are similarities, then an adversary can utilize both fields, critical infrastructure and maybe also dumping sites, but I will come to that a bit later. Well, then there are differences. I think that there's like two main differences. An attack on a critical infrastructure will always show a direct impact. If it's destroyed, it's destroyed. You will lose power in the power grid, you lose gas in the gas system. This is something that you realize immediately, and that is usually also the purpose behind such an attack, because it's not just achieving the effect on the power grid, it's also signaling, showing that infrastructure can be destroyed. Our critical infrastructure sectors are vulnerable, so the visibility of an impact is part of the job in that field. However, things you might want to do with UXO as a malicious actor, they are probably more subtle. I mean, your example of dragging the anchor through the UXO site and waiting for something to explode, that would be visible in the instant where it goes off. But removing the explosive, that was a case in the past and is always like a topic that comes up, is access to UXO sites so easy that it's a good way to get your hands on explosives. Unfortunately, we do have a major conflict on the continent, and we had so many conflicts in the last decades that there are other ways to get your hands on good new military-grade explosive than going for a dive in the North Sea or the Baltic. So I think the explosives probably not the main focus here. There are also chemical agents, and I mean, we have the incidents in the fishery fleet with mustard gas, so we know basically the stuff is still good. There would be a new kind of escalation using these agents for a terrorist or hybrid attack, and there are not that many other ways to get your hands on chemical agents except for dumping sites. So I think we need to keep an eye out for that. But generally speaking, I would say that within this framework of hybrid attacks on our societies, the dumping site, they play a minor role compared to just direct attacks on critical infrastructures. So I would see a difference here. Well, this brings us to chances and risks. Chances, and I think, Peter, you elaborated on that as well. It's like a dual-use thing, because for both areas, we need maritime situational awareness. And much effort was put on the topic to build up and strengthen the capabilities of authorities, not just only military, it goes down to vessel traffic centers and so on. We need to know what happens along our coastlines at sea. And this maritime situational awareness that benefits both purposes, doing something malicious with dumping sites and attacking critical infrastructures. And we see the same stuff, there's like dual use potential of technologies. Before Nord Stream, and you're absolutely right, maritime security, that wasn't on top on our agenda. I think apart from the military, the other big driver was UXO for quite a while. But the technologies that were developed during that period of time, they're handy also right now for seabed security, seabed warfare. So it wasn't the waste of engineering and development. It's actually a good thing that we can really use these dual use goods. And nice examples, the UK, they choose offshore supply vessels to increase the Navy's strength, to have suitable vessels for underwater critical infrastructure protection. So they didn't come up with a new concept to build a warship, which took 10 years. They just looked on the market, and in hindsight, I mean, well, not only German Navy, but all navies, you should have bought these vessels a few years ago when they were basically in layup all around the world and very cheap. Now it's too late, but still it's an easy option to really get capabilities into your fleets which didn't exist 5 to 10 years ago. And with CSAC, excellent example. I remember during the kickoff, we had this first demonstration with existing technology, and we went there with our CCAT and showed how easy it is to operate systems that were developed for other purposes and use them for maritime security context, and it just works. So we are a research organization, so it hurts myself a little bit to say we don't need that much more research. We can already act. But these are the chances that I see here. A major chance is all the data that we collected on the seafloors, because we need to understand the UXO problem. It's both for it's not just only dumping sites, it's also mainly, I say, the development of wind farms. So we do a lot of mapping. And you pointed out, I mean, the Russians are mapping the seafloor. They're not mapping that because they want to build wind farms there and they don't want to support our maintenance or repair capabilities. They have other intentions, most likely. But we did this for a good purpose. We have the data. The data is readily available, and it can be very easily used also to help our authorities to get a better understanding on the underwater situation awareness picture, because that's where we lack real-time data. Many projects are underway to get more real-time data in the underwater domain, but until we have that, we should at least use the historic data that is available already and just needs to be put into this other application here. Generally, and I'm really looking forward to your part here, because the urgency, that is something that drives technology development. And therefore, everything that I said right now, I stand with it today. We have learned from the last few years in Ukraine, you really were the eye-opener for the world, that looking at the technology today and thinking about the capabilities, the vulnerabilities, that is good for today, but somewhere around the corner, there is already the next evolution of technologies, and that might render almost everything I said right now obsolete, and we might face a new situation. So that is something we should not just be afraid of, we should just be part of it. And we should just use the urgency in both fields. The urgency in UXO removal, because the environmental issue is not going away simply because we also have a security issue here. And we just like combine these two elements and use this to become advocates into our societies. Because for both areas, the general population lacks the understanding and the awareness that this is something of urgency. So I think this is something we can join forces, let's say the UXO community and the security community, and just make our societies aware that our maritime domain matters for our societies, and that should result in sped up the legal processes to eliminate the gray zones, but also to provide funding to allocate funding to the developments that we need. So final conclusions would be, there are also, of course, risks. Risks are always something that we need to be aware of when you mix two subjects. I want to be brief here, but I think overdoing it here with combining these two elements, like claiming that there is a huge security risk originating from UXO dumping sites, I think that would be misleading the society to an extent, and then we would also lose again the society's support in doing something. And I think we should also maintain a clear separation in funding for these two issues, because right now we have a clear understanding what is security and defense and what is environmental protection. I think both areas are more or less sufficiently funded right now, so we should not start to open the debate again who should actually contribute to development of what to achieve what end. We have enough, we can start, and I think if we don't overdo it here, the risk can be mitigated. And yeah, these are so far my observations on these two subjects and how they could be aligned or should remain disaligned. And I'm looking forward to your questions. And but first of all, your presentation.
Thanks a lot, dear Karl, for raising the risk, showing us the challenges and opportunities, and also for kind of introducing our next speaker. I think you mentioned that probably innovation and your tools you are producing and manufacturing could also be one part in putting together these two communities and bubbles and finding more solutions. Dimitri, great to have you here, and very much looking forward to your presentation.
Guten Morgen. Thank you very much for having me. It's really a pleasure and honor. My name is Zelenskyi, or you can call me Dima. I am founder of Toloka. We are producing long-range underwater vehicles in Ukraine, and I would like to ask organizers to join on the presentation because I believe it's better one time to see than several times to hear. So what we are doing drones that can run on the surface, that can run underwater. Unfortunately, we don't have a video when the vehicle runs underwater. We have several technologies on the periscope used, starting from thermal imaging camera recognition of the objects and targeting, continue with AI for our hydrophones that are built inside the vehicle, so we can recognize different types of warships, submarines, and so on. So what caused the development of this technology? The first reason was that Ukraine has no its own fleet, and this we have faced it in 2022 and decided to help our country to build long-range self-targeting missiles. However, this year we have started to look at the dual-use solution to provide a safety solution for, first of all, for Ukraine to make reconnaissance, because there is a huge threat still and continue the development of Russian threat from Russian side, because Russians are copying unmanned surface vehicles that are targeted Ukrainian infrastructure. This is the middle-sized vehicle, TLK-400. What's interesting in it, it runs with a hybrid propulsion system, like modern hybrid vehicle with a diesel engine and batteries. So we're using the principle of well-known during the World War II diesel-electric submarines. So the vehicle runs on the surface, charges batteries with conventional generator, and then can run underwater. You can launch the vehicle for 30 minutes from any shore. You don't need extra or special slips and so on. Vehicles we have several modifications of it, so usually it operates autonomously because you cannot turn on your radio. In the Black Sea, in this case, you will be detected by Russians and destroyed. So most of the time the vehicle is running underwater. We have several types of satellite connections, and we can change the algorithm during the road. Currently what we have the first system, several AI networks that classify different objects starting from the merchant ships, enemy ships. Also we have thermal imaging camera and optical camera. First of all, we're using thermal imaging camera to detect what is above us, for example, some flying drones and so on, because Russians usually launch attacks using their kamikaze drone from the offshore, from the Black Sea, and targeting Odessa and regions near the shore. Currently, for reconnaissance and targeting as well, we're using acoustic signature recognition. We have optical and thermal imaging cameras to detect when the vehicle is on the surface. And we have already quite a big database of acoustic signatures and can classify and differentiate more than 12 types of Russian warships, including submarines. So what is the main principle and what we are doing from standpoint of modern technologies? We're using hybrid technology, so the vehicle gets to the surface, charges batteries, and get to the seafloor. So with the help of buoyancy systems, we can get to the seafloor and stand there for more than 1 month in standby mode. In this case, our acoustic hydrophones continue to work, and the vehicle can be activated with a strong acoustic signal. The range, what we received with such hybrid technology, diesel-electric. So first of all, we received low cost. And the second thing that we have received opportunity to reach for the bigger model up to 1,200 nautical miles of range. And the third thing that we have with such technology, we have a huge payload. At least 1/4 of the weight of the device is for payloads. Usually it's explosives. However, we can put inside ROV and provide some extra missions for for requests of our end users. Talking about Baltic Sea and Baltic protection, I think that this can be a use case. So you can pre-deploy vehicles, you can pre-deploy our vehicles, you can pre-deploy any other types of underwater vehicles available, and activate it when the threat appears. So it can be something that you currently thinking that could happen, and it's better to prepare that there is a threat in order to operate and respond very frequently, very promptly. Talking about these technologies that are currently available in use, we have a swarming capabilities, and it is the next step currently because it puts the new standard in maritime operations. We have started from the smallest vehicle, TLK 150. It's, for 2 persons, the weight is 70 kilograms of this vehicle. The payload is currently up to 10 kilograms, so not so big. However, it is find its use in the Dnieper River, and it delivers small river mines. It is towing it and releasing in specific place. So as you know, Russians constantly trying to force Dnieper River with their boats. So this is a mining system generally. So it can deploy in specific place small river mines up to 30 centimeters. The most popular vehicle is TLK 400. It is gasoline electric. Comparing the next one, I will talking about. The range is also quietly big, 650 nautical miles, and it carries up to 500 kilos of payload. In our case, it is explosives. In other case, it can be extra equipment for reconnaissance and so on. And the most interesting and the biggest vehicle that we are producing, it is TLK 1000, 20 tons vehicle that has 5 tons of explosives. It is modular as the previous one, so you can see the comparison between vehicles. TLK 1000 is a replica of TLK 400, however runs with diesel-electric propulsion system and carries more extra payload. Also, it can carry, except of the payload, it can carry ROV. The size of the ROV can be 800 millimeters by 800 millimeters by up to 2 meters. And talking about competitive advantages, I will skip this promptly. So I believe that main competitive advantage that we are allocating in Ukraine, we have a unique access to sensitive data, and it helps empower our AI networks. We are constantly gathering, with help of Ukrainian forces and users, data sets and using to increase accuracy of all modern system for reconnaissance, for targeting, for our vehicles. So our team consists currently, so we are a tiny company. Our company currently includes 16 engineers. However, 4 of them has a PhD in STEM fields and 2 current professors in the universities. So I would like to say that all underwater surface infrastructure are quietly vulnerable. And you know that how strictly Crimea Bridge is protected. Nonetheless, it is targeted and it will be deconstructed soon. So even if Russia has, for example, one most important object in the Black Sea, it cannot protect it. And I think it exposes a lot of. We have received a strong support from our president because it is one of the most important and unique technologies developed in Ukraine, and we are ready to share this technology with our friendly countries. We are interested in cooperation, in exchanging of technologies. Maybe in some cases we're interested for new projects and investments. Also, we are ready to provide this technology to the world, to our allies, and we have a strong feeling that in the end of this year, as you know, that there is a ban of export of technologies. We hope that it will be lifted, and we are preparing to this. We are preparing for dual-use technology and dual use of our technology with long range that can decrease risks for humans. So here is you can scan my email, and I'm open to connections. So feel free to contact, and thank you very much. It's a great honor to be here and speak with you. Thank you.
Thank you for the great presentation, for showing us the agile innovation system in Ukraine and highlighting it with some really specific examples. How we not just can be operating in an offensive but also in a defensive way when it comes to protection of the infrastructure. Before you get ready for your questions, I would ask the commander. We now saw the geopolitical dimension. We had the technological solutions, the innovation and the security aspects. From your experience, Commander, and your work and now in the policy area, what would you identify as the central weakness in maybe first European and then NATO-wide response to underwater threats in a way? And what kind of policy would you identify as the most important policy right now? It's a tough question.
Actually, it is. First of all, I can't answer on behalf of NATO and
Sure.
European Union. In the next panel, we will have a representative from European Commission. Mm-hmm. So maybe he's more capable of answering this question. But what the center, what is the approach of the center on this matter is that we need clear rules of engagement on specific scenarios. There is need to build scenarios for a number of incidents and to build ad hoc, tailor-made responses to these scenarios. And in our understanding, this is the only way to raise awareness. Okay. Okay. I don't know if I have to repeat. No. Okay. So this is the only way for have clear views of how allies can address and counter this kind of threats. We have to provide concrete and solid solutions. There's no space no longer for abstract concepts. There are so many concepts. We have already much data that can help us to decide and pave the way for specific solutions. So what the Hybrid Center offers is the center is a platform. Actually, we are not a NATO or a European Union entity. The Hybrid Center of Excellence is a Finnish entity with multinational participation. Actually, in this center, we have all NATO and EU member states are participants. We have 36 participant states. We clearly offer the platform for NATO and European Union to cooperate. And we provide them specific scenarios. They invite them in our premises. We run stress tests, and we can make estimations and assessments on how they can collaborate each other in addressing specific threats, specific hybrid threats, and in my domain, against critical maritime infrastructure and offshore infrastructure in general. This is my first approach. I don't know if...
Thank you, Commander.
And actually, I'm captain.
Oh, okay, then. Thank you, Captain. Sorry for that, but thanks, Captain, for your first views on that. I mean, we discuss a lot about also repair capabilities and stuff, and who does it really, who controls the capabilities. And I think you're providing a lot of recommendations within your platform. Carl, how do you address the spatial fragmentation of protection planning when we see the different nations in the Baltic Sea area? We see a lot of approaches on different institutions and levels, on international levels, but how do you address the fragmentation?
There's definitely a fragmentation, but that is not because of technological differences in the nations. That is because of legal differences in various systems. And therefore, there is no solution. I mean, I'm not speculating about a unified European Union nation, whatever. So this will simply remain. But having said that, there are also lines that work across all nations. And you pointed out we need to look at these scenarios and then find responses to the scenarios as they unfold. And they are right now always directed against what is Russia doing here. There might be some Chinese involvement and so on, but this is our main focus, and I think this is also what happens. We have to think along the lines, what does Russia actually intend to do? And there are a few things that are reoccurring. In the strategic communication from Russia, they always want to point out that NATO or European Union is fighting a war against Russia. So on the rhetoric side, they have always this escalation that we are at war. To do something against that is that in all the nations, the response is typically done by the police, not by the military, because we don't want to give this image that we are reacting with military forces against a merchant vessel that had an accident. And so it doesn't really matter which nation you look, they're all following the same scenario thinking in defining their solutions. This is not the solution for everything. This is something that in the current situation that fulfills one purpose. But looking at the capabilities of the police forces in most nations, there are huge differences in the capabilities from police to navies. So we could get like tricked and forced into escalating because of a lack of capabilities on the law enforcement side if we don't create these capabilities fast enough. That differs a little bit in the nations because the Coast Guard functions, sometimes they are clear civil law enforcement, sometimes they are clear military organizations, sometimes they are a mixture. So every nation has to find its own path. But I think in general we see next to the military build-up, also a build-up of the law enforcement capabilities, because we want to keep this situation where we aren't forced to escalate until we are really forced to do it. This is the other scenario that we should not neglect, that there might be a real military confrontation with Russia on the doorstep. So just focusing on the police is also too short-sighted, which again makes it very expensive to react.
But isn't this a lack of communication and also of a strategic way of communication when we see how we react, for instance, in Germany, and then without communicating what we are doing there? I mean, the Finns did better at the beginning of this year. They showed in social media what they are doing, how they are acting, how strict and direct they can react. I think Germany is way behind that. Also in explaining why we are having these kind of structures. Peter, you finished your presentation in presenting the NCC and the CSAC initiative, and you mentioned that it's highly important that we integrate the private sector better than now for sure, but to integrate them better also into security policy, into the organizational bodies of NATO planning, of EU, of the maritime security centers. How do you see right now the level of trust between the private sector and the public sector, and maybe having a look from your institutional perspective, what could create the perfect level of trust for both sides? What should the public sector offer the private sector, and what can the private sector offer the public sector? I mean, data for sure, but what else maybe?
Yeah. Maybe in general, that's a very good question. So whenever I go to these conferences where we're talking about critical infrastructure, I see police, I see military, but typically the owner of the assets, and these are the parties who can also act cross-border. Means our authorities are only allowed to act within our borders, and the owners, they could protect their assets. And trust, I think trust is not an issue here. What my experience is that both sides trust each other. We maybe have some other things, especially in Germany, as I know from Germany, is that authorities are sometimes a bit afraid of working with private industry because of, let's say, any compliance issues and so on. Maybe we have to take away fear from them that could be something which is maybe critical, make it more open for more easy to cooperate with the owners. And the owners typically can, of course, be much quicker in their development cycles in purchasing methods. And another thing I like to add to this is, of course, we can now throw millions of money and a lot of people on this issue, but that's maybe exactly what Russia is expecting from us. So to protect our infrastructure, if I'm driving a tanker with 60 knots and an anchor on it, nobody can stop this. I mean, even if you kill the machine, then it goes on for the next 10 nautical miles. So I think this protection thing, we cannot shoot every fishing vessel. Yeah? We cannot shoot a rocket on a fishing vessel. That's also not possible. So I think the private sector, the owners of the assets, have to be included much more than we have it now. We have to give them some legal background that they are allowed to and that they may have to. But then, because if they have this, then they maybe would act more. And then maybe this could be key to it, so that they can also improve their repair capabilities, which is maybe much more important than shooting a fishing vessel, right? So that's my statement to this.
Okay, yeah, I often hear that within NATO they tried with the coordination cell, and I still see there is a lack of a certain level of trust. How much of data and information can we give the state? What can we what can we get back from the state? So what does the police can really offer us as a private sector, as a platform, a provider, for instance, because they say directly, okay, we cannot share this. This is a high confidential data, and that's just my observation. Therefore, I was just like wondering, how can we really increase the level of trust to put this real picture better together and to get more information and a better collaboration in the end. I wouldn't say that there is no collaboration, but a better and a still improved collaboration. Dima, before you get started, and we are very interested in to hear your questions, I would ask you, Dima, and then I would please you to raise your hands if you have questions, comments, ideas and sorts. There is the mic over there. Then we welcome you also over here to ask your questions there. Dima, I think we in Germany look very not only interested into what's happening in Ukraine when it comes to the innovation cycle, when we see how fast you can implement, how agile your ecosystem is. Maybe you could show us or explain us a little bit more how fast you can develop, and then you can directly bring your technology into operational plannings and also actions. I see our innovation and ecosystem here, and it takes way more time. Carl can I think elaborate this way more. But how is it? How fast can you really act? How fast can you implement new technology? What role does AI play? And that would be very interesting.
Thank you very much for this question. First of all, talking about the speed, it's more about mission. And our company and other companies that are developing solutions to support Ukraine and our nation, our country, they're driven by mission. And the main cause of such prompt development of technologies is that you will not be able to survive otherwise. For example, we decided to build new product in 2022, just 2 weeks the war started. We decided, I gathered all our team, and we decided to build something that could help our country to defeat the enemy and win this war. And in 3 months, we already had a prototype that was already in water, and we have reached the first milestone. So all of the team was working without any holidays for first 3 months. And I think that the first and the main reason is that there is a huge demand of such solutions, not only in underwater solutions, ground solutions, and so on, drones, and so forth. And the second reason, I think when you're looking from the peace perspective, not wartime perspective, you're thinking that it's too fast. For the perspective of our militaries, the pace is too low. They are asking all technologies for yesterday. And the second point, all technologies they need for yesterday, and the quantity should be high enough to meet this demand. And from this perspective, the pace is very low. And the pace is low not only in developing and providing Ukrainian technologies, however, comparing to the traditional practices, it's really fast. For example, for underwater vehicle that can be deployed in 3 months, it is quite fast. Other technologies were developed in the same time slots approximately. Answering the second question, the AI technologies and modern technologies, cheap technologies, gave us an opportunity to build something new and respond to modern threats and develop new solutions that can help our end users, our militaries, to execute them and achieve some benefits on the front line. So. And these technologies provides us opportunity to build everything cheaper. For example, the cost of the FPV drone is approximately starts from $400. So comparing to any kind of other munitions, and drones plays currently on the front line like more than 90% of all successes or losses. And the difference between these forces directs the whole battlefield.
Okay, wow, yeah, it's It's great to hear that you make these kind of approaches and that fast. It's great to see that. I see a couple of questions over there. The gentleman in the line is waiting for minutes. Thanks for your patience. Now the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, Jens Konrad from GmbH. So we are here at the Kiel Munition Clearance. We talked about critical infrastructure, very interesting. I think we showed, and you showed, that the technology used for observing and finding munitions and also dumped sea munitions and investigating critical infrastructure is quite similar. I'm really impressed by the pace of your development. We saw this big gray shark. I think it took longer to develop than 3 months. But I have now a question. So this is now a security issue. So do you see really a security risk or threat that somebody retrieves old munition to use this in terrorist attacks or military attacks? So that's one question. Do you see really a risk of that dumped munition when you try to explode it in mass explosions also is a risk to critical infrastructure? So the question is, how closely is critical infrastructure linked to sea dump munition? Yeah, or is it much easier to go to the darknet and simply buy some explosives and get the guidelines how you build a bomb from there? So I would like to see how the link between sea dump munition and critical infrastructure and the security part is seen by you. Thanks.
So,
Dima, you can start if you want, yeah, sure.
So currently we're not using the old munitions, and generally we're a delivery company, so we're not working with directly with explosives. We're providing solutions that can deliver some types of payloads to specific places or execute specific missions. And usually, talking about our products, we are providing capsules that are filled by our militaries directly, usually with modern explosives, with high energy explosives, more effective than it was like decades ago. Answering to previous question, I would like to add that currently in some scenarios, in Ukraine especially, there is very low bureaucratic barrier between interaction of such commercial teams like our, so we are a company generally. However, we're working for defense, to support our country. However, we are a commercial company legally, and with the help of such low barriers between end users, military forces, we were able to achieve such fast pace. And talking about other types of munition, we didn't face with such problems to target or create some difficulties in Ukraine, in the Black Sea, of munitions that are, for example, lay decades on the seafloor. However, we have faced with huge problems when the modern munitions that were put, relatively modern munitions that were put near the, for example, Crimea, near the Odessa, can be told or can be directed to other fields that are not referred as battlefield zone. So this is a huge problem. It is a huge problem for everything, for our commercial fleet, first of all, and there is a huge problem how to provide demining efficiently in Ukraine.
Maybe the commander would like to add some of the security. The captain, sorry, the captain, sure. The captain would like to add some of the security risk. Maybe is it a part of one of your scenarios as well? Are you having these kind of scenarios in mind or not? And then Karl, you could also add if you would like.
Yes, thank you. I have already posed this question in my keynote speech. So the only thing that we have to do is to prioritize the risks that are related to the dump munitions, munition dump sites. I don't know if there is such a prioritization in order to be focused on the most high-level risk. This is the first step. And then we can build scenarios based on these dump sites and to play with possibilities, vulnerabilities, and have a concrete outcome when, where, when we can, there's a high possibility to address something or to see something like that. And just to challenge our thoughts, the heading of this panel is about how we can protect munition dump sites from unauthorized accession. And my question is, do we have to protect munition dump sites? Are they museums in the seabed, or do we have to clear these munition dump sites?
Good question when trying to answer another question, but Karl, maybe you would like to answer both questions.
No. No, just come back to your question from the audience. Briefly, I mentioned in my briefing here that I don't see that the major threat. However, I also said this is the situation right now as I see it. And the reason why I introduced this sentence is because of your company, actually. End of 22, there was on the website of Brave One the first picture, at least the first picture that I saw of the, I think, 150 model. And I have this in all my slides deck still, because protecting maritime infrastructures, after Nord Stream, everybody was focusing on what happens on the surface. Everybody had the assumption that any attack would start on the surface, and then the diver goes in the water, or whatever happens, but you will have something on the surface. And only militaries had at that time the capability to launch an attack completely underwater, or at least from a distance of so many nautical miles that you will not make a link from diving to impact. So that was, if something wouldn't happen on the surface and there is an attack, it indicated clear military involvement. However, you showed that not only militaries are capable of developing long-range underwater vehicles. And what we are seeing with other technology in the Ukraine, that there's a proliferation of these new technologies to the whole world, basically. Everybody can copy the software, everybody can replicate with a 3D printer systems that have been developed in Ukraine. The underwater technology is still a bit more sophisticated compared to FPV drones, but we see like a trend that not only militaries, basically everybody can come up with an underwater weapon system. And therefore, I think if this goes around the world into other regions where access to explosives is more difficult than on the European continent right now, then UXO explosives could be used by like low-level terrorists or whatever to do something. So I think we cannot just conclude there's a risk or there's no risk. I think the world of opportunities of scenarios is vast, and therefore we have to factor in this risk here. And one final bad idea, what comes to my mind, whether there's risk of a dump site or not, doesn't really matter. If I want to draw the police attention and the resources to a certain area, I just have to put it on X that somebody wants to do something in Kolberger Heide. And yeah, well, I will then for sure know that all police boats will be there for the next few days, and I have basically a free operations room everywhere else. So it is something that we need to factor in into the security calculations.
Next question.
Yeah, my name is Michael Katschke. I'm from the Federal Police. And the question will not be a real question because I know that you're not able to answer it. But I want to highlight something. Karl was the first one talking about lawful interception. all the time we talked about danger, prevention of danger, securing something. But the police has one task, which is not a task of the German Navy, for example. We have to gather collaborations with different units, but at the end of the day, we have to gather evidences because the attack or the trial of an attack has to be trialed. And for the trial in front of the court, we need all the evidences. You heard in the first speech this morning the cable cutting by anchors, by shadow fleet. Of course, we have to be there, we have to check, and we have to prove that this ship was the one damaging the cable. And this is a part which was not mentioned before. And as a police force, we have to gather the evidences due to the law. And therefore, the law is so important for us. And that's the question, who is in charge for what? The German Constitution works on the German territory. The economic zone is not German territory, and high seas, of course not. But we have to be sure who is in charge for what. Because in front of the court, the evidences must be proven and they must be gathered legally. Therefore, the law is very, very important. And this I want to highlight because all the time we are talking about prevention of danger. But there is another step, and this is the police. In peacetime, the police work to do it. It doesn't matter if it's state police, federal police, but this is a thing we have all the time in mind. Talking about ammunition. At the end, if something happens, if it's a chemical bomb from the Second World War, pouring in the water, or something blasts, at the end, it's a case of security and the police is in charge. We have to deal with the population, we have to check that the area is safe, and so on. So at the end of the day, everything is a police task, in peace times, of course. And at the moment, we have a special situation. In the German Constitution, everything is regulated for peace times, and everything is regulated for war times. But what situation do we have now? Is it peace? Is it war? And this I just like to highlight, and I can't ask you because you can't answer, who is running the system to make the legal responsibility clear. And this is not a German thing, this is an international thing. Thank you.
Thank you for the remark and for showing us for sure that there is a lack of, we need kind of definition for the hybrid thing and the regulation also for that. And then the next question, do you have enough capabilities for also fulfill your responsibility, for instance, when it comes to underwater, to the underwater area as well, and CCAT and you name it. Thanks again for the very important remark. The next question.
Thank you, Dr. Lee. Excuse me, Dr. Lee Willett, a writer about naval stuff, coming from the UK, as you can probably tell. Recognising that there's a difference between what happens in territorial waters and what happens outside of those, I think there's a problem that's big enough globally that maybe we should look to get around that as best we can. But my question really, or more of a comment, is I'm struck by maybe why we're focusing so much on the attribution side. We're saying that attribution is very, very difficult, and it also might be possible that the person we're trying to point the finger at doesn't care what we think. I mean, what they're doing every day suggests they don't care about what others think, really. So when we talk about critical infrastructure, whether it's in territorial waters or outside, we generally now probably have a pretty good handle of where the really critical nodes are. So why are we not thinking more about putting whatever sensor capability down there around it now to ward off potential interest in coming to have a look at it. I know that costs money, but it costs probably a lot less than fixing it when it's been broken. My point being, think about it in nautical terms and a lighthouse. A lighthouse is there to ward people away from running onto the rocks. So why are we not trying to light up the critical node underwater to keep people away? It seems to me that there's a balance in deterrence between deterring by denial and deterring by punishment. And we're focusing on deterring by punishment, trying to punish someone who doesn't really care. So why are we not shifting that and focusing on deterrence by denial, stopping them being able to do it in the first place? Thank you.
Thanks for this also very interesting question. Carl, you want to take that one? Yeah.
You touch on so many subjects that would probably take until the afternoon to go to everything there. Briefly, I think UNCLOS is a very good thing to have, and therefore we have good reasons to follow a rule-based order and stick to what's written down there. Obviously, with any legal document, you can come up with interpretations, and unified interpretations by a larger number of nations has also international law some kind of weight. So that is something where we can look for ways to find like an optimized use of UNCLOS in order to give us some more leeway to operate. However, whatever we are going to do there in terms of finding new ways to fend off, scare off, deter, we have to expect others doing the same with us. And like yesterday in another conference here in Kiel, it was a busy week, we talked a lot about exactly this thing. So if we start to board tankers and deny them passage into the Baltic because we think that they are not flagged or classed accordingly, then probably somebody is going to do the same in the Strait of Hormuz, and we would pay dearly, or our economy would pay dearly. And here we would point the finger and say, yeah, but this ship that actually had a right flag. And the other side will say, well, yeah, we were just investigating, like you are doing. So I think it's really dangerous to find too much wiggle room in UNCLOS, because our opponents, and that's not just only Russia, there are many states using like lawfare. I mean, we actually came up with a term for that meanwhile, using lawfare to show their power. So yes, I'm with you. Doing something that has an impact is important. I think deterrence, and I think it was NATO reasoning behind deterrence, that Russia in particular still, in many cases, wants to deny an involvement. And therefore attribution is a way to deter. We have examples in Germany. You have murders where it was very obvious that Russian state was involved officially until the guy got released and returned to Russia. We always denied it until he was back home. But in many cases, Russia doesn't want to be seen as the malicious actor here. Everybody knows it. It's quite obvious. But from a political standpoint, in the diplomatic talk, they will deny it. And therefore, attribution will take away this possibility of denial, and therefore will take away a political means for Russia, which has the deterrence effect. So I think it's still an important thing. So much for now. As I said, well, answering all your parts of your question would be just too much, and I also want to give the opportunity to the other colleagues here.
Maybe the captain wants to add, yeah.
Yes, I would like to comment in the previous statement. In my understanding, it's not difficult to find out who is responsible for what. Just run a scenario, and you will find after that who will be responsible for what. Just run a scenario. Because even you have already responsibilities, maybe in practice, these responsibilities are impractical. They can't be implemented. So this is my comment on your statement. Regarding the rule of law, democratic states have to follow the rule of law. Personally speaking, I don't want to stick with with terms. In any case, states have the responsibility to protect their interests. And in order to do that, they have to follow international law. The big questions are regarding with how states have adopted international law rule in their national legislation. This is a big issue. And according to our research, a lot of states haven't yet adopted the national rule and the national law in their national legislation regarding the protection of critical undersea infrastructure. Another point is that we don't need another legal document. We have too many legal documents. The only thing that we have to do is to interpret these rules according to a legal point of view based on reasonable grounds, and having in mind that above all, national interest is the main objective of every state. This is my comment.
Thank you. There are two more questions.
Thank you very much, Dieter Guldin from Citera. First of all, thanks for that very, very interesting keynote, Captain. That was an eye-opener in some way. I'm not sure if this is getting a question or a comment here, but to be honest, I have the feeling we're living in different times here than a few years before. Yeah, so times are changing quite fast, yeah, and the risk is changing. And looking on the development of our Bundeswehr or from the Navy, I think we have to build up more resilience. Yeah? So what I understood actually is you're working on scenarios, and I would actually not agree that the scenario of dump sites are not a risk or not a possible target. Yeah? I think I see it slightly differently. Yeah? I mean, I would remind the situation that Richter Falcone was actually killed with explosive from the Second World War, which was actually taken off a dump site, an Italian dump site. Yeah? And so there already was a case. Yeah? And I think building up resilience and working with scenarios, this is something what we should do in these changing times, and we should adapt to the changing times even faster. Yeah? So I would not exclude dumping areas as a potential risk or as a potential target, because we've been there, we've seen it. I mean, it's on the seafloor. It's easy. Nobody can track it, and of course it has a kind of effect. Yeah. So this is actually the comment. And then one question, I mean, building up resilience, we did the clearance, and Mr. Kinas is just sitting next to me, and he knows about the problems we had over there. So working on a dump site is under the regime of, under a law regime, and monitored by different legal parties, but we've not been allowed to work under the regime of Gefahr in Verzug, which would make things much more easy. So the dump sites are not regarded as a threat at the moment. And, looking at the scenarios and what we've seen and what we've heard today, I would say dump sites are a threat. Yeah? So we have an imminent danger. And, at least as a next step, I would recommend to work on the dump sites, do the dump site survey and the dump site clearance under the regime of Gefahr in Verzug, because this makes things much more easier. It much more easier for you and for us as well. So at the end, it turns out it's not a question, it's a comment. Sorry for that.
But would you like to react on the first scenario planning thing, or no? You raised the question as well, and you?
Very briefly, you brought up resilience, and actually, Well, you mentioned it. I was surprised that we didn't use the term that often tomorrow on this panel, because usually it's one of the main buzzwords. And it is kind of the solution, which is problematic if it's just a buzzword. But yes, we heard even Russia's most important infrastructure can't be protected. That applies to basically all our infrastructures. We cannot guarantee 100% security. So our security has to result from another way of doing things, and the resilient infrastructure where we're not relying on single failable, vulnerable infrastructures. That's the way forward. So I think, yeah, resilience was good to bring up the term at least, yeah.
And the last question, the gentleman over there.
Okay, thank you very much. Jacek Budowski, Polish Academy of Sciences. So, first of all, it was a very enlightening session, both in terms of lectures and the discussion, and in terms of the dual use and the dump sites. I think that in terms of chemical munition dump sites, the agents which are there can no longer be used or easily used by the terrorists just because they are heavily degraded and the munitions are heavily corroded, and usually those dump sites are located quite deep. So it is considerable effort to actually recover the agents from the dump sites. But nevertheless, I consider those dump sites a threat in terms of the intentional detonation of a depth charge in the dump site area. We have almost observed that during the Nord Stream explosion. It was just 14 miles away from the major dump site of chemical ammunition in the Baltic Sea, and according to our studies, which we performed like 2 weeks after, the disturbance zones in the sediments reached 8 miles. So we've been like 6 miles away from the major disaster. And of course, the dump sites are known locations, and the surface traffic can be monitored by the coastal countries, by AAS and so on. But I think the threat which is not addressed currently is the underwater vehicles which could transport the payload. So right now, the project Munimap, which I'm coordinating, is designing the monitoring structure for the munitions in the Baltic Sea. And I wonder if this would be a good thing to combine it with this dual use, like a threat detection, because one of the components of this system will be the mooring platforms, which will be monitoring the chemical contamination. So I wonder if it's a good idea to add some acoustic sensors for actually tracking the underwater vehicles nearby those dump sites. So I would be grateful for your opinion.
Who wants to take the question? Peter? Yeah?
Yes, so in general, of course, if you install underwater acoustic sensing things or whatever on the dump sites by authorities, of course I would be very happy, right? They do everything, you get all the data, and if you good reason for this, then it's good. But another thing I would highlight here, no infrastructure owner is building their infrastructure through a dump site, right? Typically not. In general, so that's another thing. So the critical, so the dump sites and the critical infrastructure. The linkage is a bit interesting, right? But you know, underwater sensors, not to have this installed is always good.
Okay.
If you have access to it, and no one else. Yeah, but at the end, what I said, what to do with the information. That's
well, we will then postulate in this monitoring structure that additional acoustic sensors can be installed by interested countries in such an installation if there is a need. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks. We got a lot. We raised a lot of topics. We started with the geopolitical dimension. Thank you, Captain, again, for the perfect keynote, for the perfect introduction. Then you also mentioned that we have to better integrate the scenario planning into our decision making. We saw the power of technology. Thank you, Dima, for showing us not only your company, but especially your innovations. Peter, We have so many hopes in the CSAC and the NNCC. I think they can be a very good approach and the game changer. And Karl, you tried at the beginning to put both dimensions together. We tried it also in our discussions. I think there are still two different communities, but I think we have some same issues and a lot of opportunities. Thank you for your attention, for your interest, and thanks for your expertise. And thank you to our experts, the captain, Dima, Peter, and Karl. Thank you.